Vincent Henderson stared at the four alien females before him, their exotic features a stark reminder of how far he'd come from his suicide mission. The Aridian jungle loomed beyond the research facility's walls, a constant threat that paled in comparison to the challenge he now faced. Crash landing on Aridus wasn't part of the United Earth government's official plan. They'd sent Vincent, a disgraced Special Forces operative, on what they claimed was a covert intelligence-gathering mission. In reality, it was a death sentence. The xenophobic Aridians had rebuffed all previous human contact attempts, their advanced technology making them a tempting yet dangerous target. Vincent's ship barely entered the atmosphere before Aridian defenses reduced it to smoldering wreckage. He survived the crash, but found himself stranded in a hostile alien jungle with dwindling supplies and severe injuries. For days, he battled the planet's dangerous flora and fauna, each encounter a grueling test of his military training and survival instincts. When an Aridian patrol finally captured him, Vincent expected a swift execution. Instead, he met Xanth, a high-ranking male scientist who saw the human as an opportunity rather than a threat. The Aridians faced a critical problem. Genetic incompatibilities were causing a severe population decline. Xanth believed human DNA might be the key to their species' survival. Now, deep within a secret Aridian research facility, Vincent learned the true nature of his mission. 4 female Aridians stood before him, each representing a different subspecies adapted to the planet's varied environments. Xanth's plan was as simple as it was audacious. Vincent must successfully mate with all 4 females to produce viable offspring. The stakes were clear. Failure meant execution. Success could prevent an interstellar war. Unbeknownst to Vincent, Earth's government had lost contact with him after the crash. Assuming him dead, they began preparations for a full-scale invasion of Aridus. His presumed demise became their justification for aggressive action against the technologically superior aliens. As Xanth initiated the first phase of the mating experiments, Vincent underwent genetic modifications to increase his compatibility with Aridian physiology. The process was painful and disorienting, blurring the lines between his human identity and his new role as a biological bridge between species. Vincent's mind raced. He'd been sent here to die, yet now he found himself at the center of a plan that could shape the future of 2 civilizations. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him as he considered the implications of his success or failure. Could he prevent a war? Could he save the Aridian species? And what would become of him if he succeeded? As he looked at the 4 alien females again, Vincent realized that his mission had evolved far beyond mere survival or intelligence gathering. He was now a reluctant diplomat, a scientific subject, and potentially the progenitor of a new hybrid species. The jungle outside suddenly seemed far less daunting than the challenge that lay ahead within these sterile facility walls. With a deep breath, Vincent steeled himself for what was to come. He may have been sent to die on this jungle planet, but he was determined to return, with 4 alien wives and the fate of 2 species hanging in the balance. Vincent's eyes locked with Zara's, her bioluminescent skin casting a soft, ethereal glow in the dimly lit chamber. The artificial jungle surrounding them hummed with life, a meticulously crafted facsimile of Aridus's dense forests. As Xanth's voice crackled through hidden speakers, explaining the parameters of their first interaction, Vincent felt his genetically modified body responding to the alien environment in ways he couldn't have imagined. "Remember," Xanth's voice intoned, "this is not just about physical compatibility. We must observe your ability to form a connection, to work together. The future of both our species may depend on it." Vincent nodded, his throat dry. He took a tentative step towards Zara, whose lithe form seemed to meld with the shadows of the artificial foliage. Her skin pulsed with patterns of light, a language he couldn't yet decipher but found oddly mesmerizing. "I'm Vincent," he said, his voice sounding strange in the humid air. "I guess we're supposed to get to know each other." Zara's head tilted, her large, iridescent eyes blinking slowly. She raised a hand, fingers elongated and delicate, and pointed to a dense cluster of vegetation. Without a word, she turned and moved towards it, her movements fluid and silent. Vincent followed, his military training kicking in as he scanned the environment for potential threats. The simulated jungle was incredibly realistic, complete with the sounds of unseen creatures and the occasional rustle of leaves. As they pushed through the foliage, Vincent found himself face to face with a holographic projection of an Aridian predator, its razor-sharp teeth bared in a silent snarl. Instinctively, Vincent dropped into a defensive stance, ready to engage the threat, but Zara's hand on his arm stopped him. Her skin flickered with rapid pulses of light, and to Vincent's amazement, the holographic beast retreated, dissolving into mist. You communicated with it?" Vincent asked, his heart racing. Zara's skin pulsed again, this time in a pattern that seemed almost amused. She nodded, then pointed to Vincent's stance, mimicking his defensive posture. "Oh, right," Vincent said, relaxing slightly. "Where I come from, we have to fight predators, not talk to them." As they continued through the jungle, Vincent found himself impressed by Zara's ability to navigate the complex terrain. She moved with a grace that made him feel clumsy in comparison, but he noticed her watching him closely as he used his own skills to overcome obstacles. When they encountered a deep chasm in their path, Vincent's military training proved invaluable. He quickly assessed the situation and found a way to create a makeshift bridge using nearby vines and fallen logs. Zara observed his work with obvious interest, her bioluminescent patterns shifting in what Vincent began to interpret as approval. As they crossed the bridge together, Vincent felt a strange sense of accomplishment. They were working as a team, each bringing their unique abilities to overcome challenges. It was a far cry from the hostile alien encounter he had expected when he first crashed on Aridus. Their journey through the simulated jungle continued, with Xanth occasionally introducing new obstacles and puzzles for them to solve. Vincent found himself relying more and more on Zara's alien senses and abilities, while she seemed to appreciate his strategic thinking and problem-solving skills. As hours passed, Vincent became acutely aware of changes in his body. His senses seemed heightened, and he could swear he was picking up on subtle shifts in Zara's bioluminescent patterns. Was he beginning to understand her nonverbal communication? During a brief rest, Vincent noticed Zara studying him intently. She reached out, her fingers gently tracing the contours of his face. The touch sent an electric jolt through his body, and he felt a surge of unfamiliar pheromones flooding his system. "Fascinating," Xanth's voice cut through the moment. "Vincent, your body is producing pheromones remarkably similar to those of Aridian males. And Zara, your reproductive system is showing signs of adaptation to human genetic markers. This is more progress than we dared hope for in the first phase." Vincent pulled away from Zara, suddenly unsure of himself. He was here to complete a mission, wasn't he? But what exactly was that mission now? The lines were blurring, his duty to Earth seeming increasingly at odds with the connection he was forming with Zara and the understanding he was gaining of Aridian culture. As they navigated the final challenges of the simulated environment, Vincent's mind raced. He had gathered valuable intelligence about Aridian society and their advanced bioengineering capabilities. This information could be crucial in preventing the impending human invasion. But could he bring himself to betray the trust he was building with Zara and Xanth? The experiment's first phase concluded with Vincent and Zara standing before a holographic representation of Aridus, its complex ecosystem laid bare before them. Vincent marveled at the intricate symbiosis between the Aridians and their planet, a relationship that humans had failed to understand or respect in their rush to claim new territories. As Xanth congratulated them on their progress and began outlining the next phase of the experiment, Vincent caught Zara's eye. Her bioluminescent patterns formed a complex dance across her skin, and to his surprise, he found he could interpret the basic meaning: curiosity, cautious optimism, and something that might have been the alien equivalent of affection. Vincent's response was interrupted by a sudden, barely perceptible vibration through the facility. Xanth's voice cut off mid-sentence, replaced by a flurry of alarmed Aridian communication. Vincent tensed, his military instincts on high alert. "What's happening?" he asked, but Zara's attention was focused elsewhere, her skin pulsing with rapid, agitated patterns. As alarms began to sound throughout the facility, Vincent realized that his presence on Aridus hadn't gone as unnoticed as they had all assumed. The next phase of the experiment would have to wait. A new challenge was about to begin. The alarms blaring through the facility jolted Vincent out of his momentary connection with Zara. Xanth's voice crackled over the intercom, urgency evident in his alien tones. "We must move quickly. The experiment cannot be compromised." Before Vincent could process the sudden shift, he found himself whisked away from the simulated jungle and Zara's bioluminescent glow. The transition was jarring, leaving him disoriented as he was led through sterile corridors to a new chamber. As his eyes adjusted to the harsh light, Vincent saw Xanth standing beside another Aridian female. Her appearance was strikingly different from Zara's forest-adapted form. This new alien had tough, textured skin that reminded Vincent of sun-baked earth. Her eyes were slightly smaller, with a protective, translucent membrane that blinked horizontally. "Vincent, this is Lyra," Xanth explained, his attention divided between the human and a series of holographic displays. "She represents our desert-dwelling subspecies. Your next challenge begins now." The chamber shimmered and transformed. Gone was the lush vegetation of the artificial jungle, replaced by an endless expanse of sand dunes and a scorching, simulated sun. Vincent felt the heat immediately, his modified body already starting to sweat profusely. Lyra stepped forward, her movements precise and economical. She gestured towards the dunes, communicating without words that they needed to move. Vincent nodded, falling into step beside her as they began their trek across the harsh landscape. The sand shifted treacherously beneath Vincent's feet, each step requiring more effort than he anticipated. Lyra, in contrast, moved with ease, her feet barely sinking into the loose grains. Vincent observed her technique, noting how she distributed her weight and used the contours of the dunes to her advantage. As they climbed a particularly steep dune, Vincent felt his lungs burning from the exertion in the dry air. Lyra paused at the crest, her eyes scanning the horizon. She pointed to a shimmering mirage in the distance, then made a drinking motion. "Water?" Vincent asked, his voice hoarse. Lyra nodded, then set off towards the potential oasis. Vincent followed, his military training kicking in as he assessed their situation. The lack of cover made them vulnerable, and the intense heat was quickly sapping his strength. He realized that finding water wasn't just part of the test. It was a necessity for survival, even in this controlled environment. Hours seemed to pass as they navigated the ever-changing landscape. Vincent's body ached, and his skin felt raw from the constant assault of wind-driven sand. He marveled at Lyra's resilience, watching as sand simply slid off her protective hide. When they finally reached the oasis, Vincent nearly cried out in frustration. It was nothing more than a shallow pool of brackish water, barely enough to wet their throats. Lyra knelt beside the pool, her hands moving in intricate patterns over the water's surface. To Vincent's amazement, the liquid began to separate, the impurities clustering together and sinking to the bottom. Lyra offered Vincent the purified water, cupped in her hands. As he drank, he felt a strange tingling sensation spreading through his body. His parched throat seemed to heal instantly, and his efficiency in processing the water increased dramatically. Vincent realized his body was adapting, mimicking Lyra's desert-optimized physiology. Xanth's voice echoed across the simulated desert. "Excellent progress. Your bodies are synchronizing faster than anticipated. Now let's increase the challenge." The sky darkened ominously, and a fierce wind began to whip around them. Sand pelted their bodies as visibility dropped to near zero. Vincent instinctively reached out, grasping Lyra's arm to avoid separation. "We need shelter!" Vincent shouted over the roaring wind. Lyra nodded, pulling Vincent close. She began to dig into the side of a dune, her powerful limbs carving out a cavity with surprising speed. Vincent joined in, using techniques he'd learned in survival training to reinforce the structure. As they worked together, Vincent noticed a change in his own body. His skin had become tougher, more resistant to the abrasive sand. He could feel new glands activating, producing a protective film that helped him retain moisture. The changes were subtle but profound, allowing him to work alongside Lyra with increasing efficiency. Inside their hastily constructed shelter, Vincent and Lyra huddled close, their bodies synchronizing to conserve energy and share warmth. Vincent felt a new wave of pheromones flooding his system, distinctly different from those he'd produced with Zara. These were tailored to Lyra's unique biology, creating a powerful biochemical bond between them. As the sandstorm raged outside, Vincent's mind drifted. He experienced vivid flashes of Aridian history, vast desert cities, complex water reclamation systems, and the gradual adaptation of Lyra's people to their harsh environment. The visions were so real, so immersive, that Vincent momentarily lost track of where he ended and Lyra began. When the storm finally subsided, they emerged to find the landscape completely transformed. Vincent marveled at how quickly he'd adapted to the new conditions, his body now moving with a fluidity that matched Lyra's desert-born grace. Xanth's voice cut through their shared moment of triumph. "Remarkable progress, both of you. Vincent, your adaptability exceeds all projections, but we must push further. Prepare yourself for the next phase." Before Vincent could respond, he felt a wave of dizziness wash over him. New genetic information flooded his system, causing him to stumble. Lyra caught him, her tough skin now feeling cool and almost damp against his. As his vision cleared, Vincent saw the desert shimmer and fade, replaced by the subtle glow of an underwater world. Panic gripped him as he realized he could no longer breathe air. His body convulsed, fighting against the sudden change. Through the watery haze, Vincent saw a new figure approaching. Naya, the aquatic Aridian. Her sleek form glided effortlessly through the water, webbed hands reaching out to steady him. As Naya's skin made contact with his, Vincent felt another surge of genetic information flooding his system. His lungs burned as they began to transform, struggling to process water instead of air. Vincent's vision blurred, the underwater environment mixing with flashes of his human past and his recent Aridian experiences. As he fought to adapt to this new aquatic challenge, a part of him wondered how much of his original self would remain when the experiment was complete. Unbeknownst to Vincent and his Aridian companions, a pair of human eyes watched the scene unfold from a hidden vantage point. Commander Elena Reeves lowered her high-powered binoculars, her mind racing with the implications of what she'd witnessed. The fate of two species now rested on the shoulders of a man who was rapidly becoming something more than human, yet not quite Aridian. As Vincent's body continued its painful metamorphosis, guided by Naya's gentle but insistent touch, the true test of his adaptability and humanity was only just beginning. As Vincent's body continued its painful metamorphosis, guided by Naya's gentle but insistent touch, he felt his lungs transforming, adapting to process water instead of air. The burning sensation in his chest gradually subsided, replaced by a strange, rhythmic pulsing as his newly formed gills began to function. Naya's webbed hands guided Vincent through the water, her bioluminescent patterns shifting in soothing waves that seemed to whisper, "Breathe. Just breathe." Vincent focused on her calming presence, forcing himself to relax as his body acclimated to the alien environment. As his vision cleared, Vincent marveled at the underwater world that surrounded them. Vibrant coral structures stretched as far as the eye could see, their colors more vivid than anything he had encountered on Earth. Schools of iridescent fish darted between the formations, their scales reflecting the soft, ambient light that filtered down from above. Xanth's voice resonated through the water, the sound waves vibrating in Vincent's newly adapted ears. "Excellent progress, Vincent. Your body is adapting faster than anticipated. Now let us begin the next phase of challenges." Naya gestured towards a cluster of swaying, bioluminescent plants nestled within a nearby coral formation. Vincent understood immediately. These must be the rare aquatic plants with medicinal properties that Xanth had mentioned. As they swam towards the plants, Vincent felt his body becoming more streamlined, his movements growing more fluid with each passing moment. His fingers and toes began to web slightly, allowing him to propel himself through the water with increasing ease. Naya demonstrated the proper technique for harvesting the delicate plants, her movements graceful and precise. Vincent mimicked her actions, carefully extracting the glowing fronds without damaging the surrounding ecosystem. As they worked side by side, Vincent noticed a new set of pheromones emanating from his body, distinctly different from those he had produced with Zara and Lyra. Their task complete, Naya led Vincent towards a dark opening in the coral reef. As they approached, Vincent realized it was the entrance to an underwater cave system. The bioluminescent patterns on Naya's skin intensified, providing a soft glow that illuminated their path. Inside the caves, Vincent's enhanced vision adapted to the low light conditions. He could now discern subtle variations in the rock formations, allowing him to navigate the twisting passageways with surprising ease. Naya's presence beside him was a constant comfort, her bioluminescence guiding them through the darkness. Suddenly, a massive shape loomed before them, a predatory creature with rows of razor-sharp teeth and glowing eyes. Vincent's instincts kicked in, his military training merging with his new aquatic abilities. He and Naya moved in perfect synchronization, using the complex cave system to their advantage as they evaded the creature's attacks. As they emerged from the caves, breathless but unharmed, Vincent felt a surge of connection with Naya. Their shared experience had brought them closer, their bodies and minds working in harmony. During a brief rest period, Vincent found himself alone for a moment. A subtle vibration caught his attention, a communication device hidden within the folds of his modified skin. Commander Elena Reeves's voice came through, clear but hushed. "Vincent, can you hear me? We don't have much time. The human invasion fleet is on its way. We need to find a diplomatic solution before it's too late." Vincent's mind raced, torn between his growing connection to the Aridians and his loyalty to humanity. "I understand," he replied softly. "What do you need me to do?" "Continue with the experiment," Reeves instructed. "But be prepared to act as a mediator. Your unique position might be our only chance to prevent a catastrophic conflict." As the communication ended, Naya returned. Vincent pushed his conflicted thoughts aside, focusing on the task at hand. Xanth's voice echoed through the water once more, announcing the completion of the underwater phase. "Prepare yourself, Vincent," Xanth said, an edge of excitement in his tone. "The final phase will be the most challenging yet. You will meet Kira, our volcanic-adapted female, and face the extreme conditions of Aridus's molten regions." Vincent's body began to tingle as Xanth initiated another round of genetic modifications. The underwater environment shimmered and faded, replaced by a harsh, sweltering landscape of blackened rock and flowing lava. As the last traces of water evaporated from his skin, Vincent gasped, his lungs burning as they readjusted to air thick with toxic fumes. Through the heat haze, he saw a figure approaching. Kira, her body seemingly impervious to the extreme temperatures surrounding them. Kira reached out, her skin glowing with an inner heat that matched the environment. As their hands touched, Vincent felt a jolt of energy coursing through his body. His skin hardened, developing a heat-resistant layer that allowed him to withstand the scorching air. Alarms blared in the distance, cutting through the constant rumble of volcanic activity. Xanth's voice crackled over the facility's communication system, tinged with urgency. "Vincent, Kira, we must accelerate the final phase. The Aridian High Command demands immediate results, and the human fleet grows restless. The fate of both our species may rest on the success of this experiment." As Vincent struggled to adapt to the volcanic environment, his body pushed to its absolute limits. He realized that his greatest challenge lay not in the physical transformations, but in the diplomatic role he would soon have to play. With the clock ticking and tensions rising between humans and Aridians, Vincent knew that his next actions would shape the future of interspecies relations. Kira's eyes met his, a silent understanding passing between them. Together they turned to face the treacherous volcanic landscape, ready to begin the final, most crucial phase of the experiment. Vincent's muscles tensed as he prepared himself for the final, most grueling phase of the Aridian mating experiment. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility, their shrill wails cutting through the constant rumble of volcanic activity. Xanth's voice crackled over the communication system, urgency evident in his tone. "Vincent, Kira, we must accelerate the final phase. The Aridian High Command demands immediate result." Before Vincent could process this new development, Xanth initiated the final round of genetic modifications. Pain erupted throughout Vincent's body, his muscles contracting and spasming as his DNA rewrote itself to withstand the extreme conditions of Aridus's molten regions. Vincent collapsed to his knees, gasping for air as his lungs transformed to filter out toxic gases. His skin hardened and darkened, developing a heat-resistant layer that shimmered like obsidian. Through blurred vision, he saw Kira approach, her body seemingly impervious to the sweltering heat. As Kira's hand touched his shoulder, Vincent felt a surge of energy course through him. His body's convulsions began to subside, and he found himself able to breathe more easily in the ash-filled air. "We must hurry," Kira said, her voice low and gravelly. "The High Command grows impatient." No sooner had she spoken than the facility's main doors burst open. General Kraz stormed in, flanked by a team of elite Aridian guards. Their eyes widened as they took in Vincent's transformed appearance. "Xanth!" Kraz bellowed. "Explain yourself immediately." Xanth stepped forward, his usually calm demeanor replaced by nervous energy. "General, please, we're on the verge of a breakthrough. This human, Vincent, has successfully integrated genetic material from all 4 Aridian subspecies." Kraz's gaze shifted to Vincent, who stood unsteadily beside Kira. The general's expression cycled through shock, disgust, and finally, grudging curiosity. "You have 10 minutes to prove the value of this experiment," Kraz growled. "After that, I'm shutting it down." Xanth nodded frantically, rushing to activate the volcanic environment simulation. The laboratory shimmered and faded, replaced by a hellish landscape of bubbling lava and jagged obsidian formations. Vincent stumbled as the ground beneath him shifted, but Kira steadied him with a firm grip. "Follow my lead," she instructed, her eyes scanning the treacherous terrain. They set off across the volcanic field, each step calculated to avoid the numerous hazards. Geysers of lava erupted around them, spraying molten rock in all directions. Vincent's newly adapted skin sizzled as droplets struck him, but he felt no pain. "Impressive," Kira murmured, studying Vincent's reaction. "You're adapting faster than I expected." As they navigated the volatile landscape, Vincent found himself relying on a combination of his military training and newly acquired Aridian instincts. He analyzed the patterns of the lava geysers, predicting their eruptions with increasing accuracy. "There!" Kira pointed to a glowing mineral formation jutting from an active lava flow. "That's our target. We need to retrieve a sample." Vincent nodded, his mind already formulating a plan. He spotted a series of cooled lava platforms leading toward the mineral deposit. "If we time our movements with the geyser eruptions, we can use them as cover," he suggested. Kira's eyes widened slightly, impressed by his quick thinking. "Lead the way." They moved in perfect synchronization, Vincent's human agility complementing Kira's natural affinity for the volcanic environment. As they drew closer to the mineral formation, Vincent felt his body temperature rising to match Kira's, allowing him to withstand the intense heat emanating from the lava flow. Unbeknownst to the pair, their progress was being broadcast to both the human invasion fleet and the Aridian High Command. Commander Reeves, monitoring the situation from her hidden vantage point, held her breath as Vincent and Kira approached their goal. Just as they reached the mineral deposit, a massive tremor shook the simulated environment. Vincent lost his footing, teetering on the edge of the lava flow. Without hesitation, Kira grabbed his arm, her incredible strength pulling him back to safety. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. Together they reached into the lava flow, their heat-resistant skin allowing them to withstand the molten rock long enough to extract a sizable chunk of the glowing mineral. As they turned to make their way back, the simulation abruptly ended. Vincent blinked, disoriented by the sudden return to the sterile laboratory environment. He became aware of raised voices and realized that General Kraz was engaged in a heated discussion with someone over a communication device. "By unprecedented success," Kraz was saying, "the human's adaptability could be the key to our species' survival. I strongly advise opening diplomatic channels immediately." Vincent's attention was drawn away from the conversation as he noticed Xanth rushing towards him, concern etched on his features. "Vincent, are you all right? Your vital signs are fluctuating wildly." Before Vincent could respond, A wave of dizziness washed over him. The room spun, and he felt his knees buckle. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was Kira's worried face and the blurred forms of the medical team rushing to his aid. As darkness engulfed him, Vincent's mind raced with fragmented thoughts. He had succeeded in adapting to all 4 Aridian subspecies, but at what cost? And what would this mean for the future of human-Aridian relations? In the chaos that followed, no one noticed Commander Reeves slipping out of her hiding place. Commitment set on her face as she prepared to play her part in the unfolding diplomatic crisis. As darkness engulfed Vincent's consciousness, his body teetered on the brink of collapse. The genetic modifications from all 4 Aridian subspecies warred within him, threatening to tear him apart at the cellular level. Xanth's eyes widened with alarm as he watched Vincent's vital signs plummet on the monitoring screens. "We're losing him!" Xanth shouted, his usually calm demeanor shattered by the urgency of the situation. "Quickly, get him to the medical bay." A team of Aridian medics swarmed around Vincent's prone form, their movements a blur of efficiency as they transferred him onto a hovering gurney. The research facility erupted into a flurry of activity, alarms blaring and personnel rushing to their stations. General Kraz's voice boomed over the facility's communication system. "Activate all defensive measures. I want a full protective barrier around this facility immediately." As the medical team raced Vincent through the corridors, the building shuddered. Outside, massive energy shields flickered to life, enveloping the entire complex in a shimmering dome of protective force. In the chaos, Commander Reeves seized her opportunity. She slipped out of her hiding place and made her way to a secure communication terminal. Her fingers flew over the controls as she established a direct link to the human invasion fleet. "This is Commander Reeves," she spoke in a hushed but authoritative tone. "I'm ordering an immediate ceasefire. The situation here is far more complex than we anticipated. We need time to assess the full implications of what's happened." Meanwhile, in the medical bay, Xanth and his team worked feverishly to stabilize Vincent's condition. Holographic displays filled the air around them, each one detailing a different aspect of Vincent's rapidly mutating physiology. "His DNA is in flux," Xanth muttered, his brow furrowed in concentration. "The Aridian genetic sequences are competing for dominance. If we can't find a way to stabilize them, his body will tear itself apart." As if in response to his words, the door to the medical bay hissed open. Zara, Lyra, Naya, and Kira strode in, their faces set with willpower. "We can help," Zara said, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with intensity. Xanth looked up, startled. "This is a delicate procedure. I can't risk any interference." "Our physiologies are the key," Naya interrupted, her aquatic adapted skin glistening under the harsh medical lights. "We're not offering to interfere. We're offering to participate." Kira stepped forward, the air around her shimmering with heat. "Our combined abilities might be the only thing that can save him now." Xanth hesitated, his scientific mind warring with desperation. Finally, he nodded. "All right, but we do this under my supervision. Any sign of further destabilization, and we stop immediately." The 4 Aridian females took up positions around Vincent's medical pod. They placed their hands on the transparent surface, each focusing intently on the unconscious human within. Zara's bioluminescence intensified, bathing Vincent in a soft, pulsating glow. Beneath his skin, his cells began to regenerate at an accelerated rate. Lyra closed her eyes, drawing on her desert-adapted biology. The air around Vincent shimmered as his electrolyte balance began to stabilize. Naya's gills fluttered as she concentrated, optimizing Vincent's oxygen absorption. His labored breathing eased, becoming deeper and more regular. Kira's volcanic resistance manifested as waves of heat that rolled over Vincent's body, reinforcing his overall resilience against the genetic strain. Xanth watched in amazement as the readings on his monitors began to stabilize. "It's working," he breathed, hardly daring to believe it. "His DNA is reconfiguring itself." Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the steady beep of medical equipment and Xanth's occasional murmured observations. Finally, Vincent's eyes fluttered open. He found himself staring up at the concerned faces of Zara, Lyra, Naya, and Kira. Each of them wore an expression of relief tinged with something deeper, a connection that transcended the boundaries of their respective species. "What happened?" Vincent croaked, his voice hoarse. Xanth stepped into view, his face alight with scientific excitement. "Something remarkable, Vincent. Your body has done the impossible. It's integrated genetic material from all 4 Aridian subspecies while maintaining its core human structure. You've become a bridge between our species, in the most literal sense." As Vincent struggled to process this information, the door to the medical bay slid open once more. General Kraz entered, followed closely by Commander Reeves. "Is it true?" Kraz demanded, his eyes fixed on Vincent. "Has he stabilized?" Xanth nodded, gesturing to the displays around them. "Not only stabilized, General, he's thriving. The implications of this are, well, they're beyond anything we could have imagined." Commander Reeves stepped forward, her expression a mix of relief and persistence. "I've managed to negotiate a temporary ceasefire with the human fleet, but we need to act fast if we're going to turn this into a lasting peace." General Kraz's gaze swept over Vincent and the 4 Aridian females surrounding him. His expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we have found our path forward." He straightened, addressing the room at large. "I'm recommending to the Aridian High Command that we grant diplomatic status to Vincent and these 4 females. They will serve as official ambassadors in our negotiations with the humans." The announcement sent a ripple of shock through the room. Vincent struggled to sit up, supported by Kira and Naya. "General," he said, his voice growing stronger, "I'm not sure I'm qualified for—" Kraz held up a hand, silencing him. "You've proven yourself more than qualified, Vincent. Your very existence now represents the possibility of peaceful coexistence between our species. And if Xanth's preliminary findings are correct, you may hold the key to solving our genetic compatibility issues and revolutionizing human medical science in the process." As the implications of this sank in, Vincent felt a strange sensation wash over him. It was as if he could sense the emotions of those around him, the excitement of Xanth, the cautious hope of Commander Reeves, the pride of the Aridian females, and even the grudging respect of General Kraz. Xanth, noticing Vincent's expression, leaned in to examine him more closely. "Fascinating," he murmured. "It seems your transformation has had some unexpected side effects. I'm detecting the presence of a new type of pheromone. It appears to be influencing the emotional states of those around you, particularly the Aridians." Commander Reeves seized on this information. "That could be invaluable during negotiations. If Vincent's presence can promote feelings of trust and cooperation, then we may have a real chance at peace," Kraz finished, nodding gravely. As the conversation turned to plans for an upcoming summit in neutral space, Vincent found his gaze drawn to Zara, Lyra, Naya, and Kira. The connection he felt with them had deepened, becoming something he couldn't quite define, a bond that seemed to exist on a cellular level. He knew that the path ahead would be challenging. He would need to navigate the complex political landscapes of both human and Aridian societies, all while coming to terms with his transformed physiology and his evolving relationships with his Aridian companions. But as he looked around the room, at the unlikely alliance of humans and Aridians working together, Vincent felt a spark of hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was no longer facing them alone. Vincent felt a surge of commitment as he looked around the room. The unlikely alliance of humans and Aridians working together filled him with hope for the future. However, he knew that the real work was just beginning. In the days that followed, Vincent and his 4 Aridian companions, Zara, Lyra, Naya, and Kira, found themselves thrust into a whirlwind of activity. General Kraz, recognizing their unique position as bridges between the 2 species, officially designated them as the Interspecies Diplomatic Corps, IDC. The group's first challenge came in the form of intensive diplomatic training. Vincent watched in fascination as Zara's bioluminescent patterns flickered rapidly during a particularly heated debate simulation. Lyra's desert-adapted skin seemed to ripple with concentration as she navigated the intricacies of Aridian etiquette. Naya's gills fluttered nervously as she practiced human handshakes, while Kira's natural heat radiated intensity as she mastered the art of subtle body language. As they worked tirelessly to bridge the vast cultural and biological differences between humans and Aridians, Vincent couldn't help but marvel at how far they'd come. Just weeks ago, he'd been nothing more than a test subject. Now he stood at the forefront of potentially revolutionary change. One afternoon, as Vincent underwent another round of medical tests with Xanth, the Aridian scientist's eyes widened with excitement. "Vincent, look at this," Xanth said, gesturing to a holographic display of Vincent's bloodstream. Vincent leaned in, squinting at the complex molecular structures swirling before him. "What am I looking at, Xanth?" "This," Xanth said, his voice filled with awe, "is a completely new chemical compound. It appears to be a combination of human hormones and Aridian pheromones. I've never seen anything like it." As Xanth explained his findings, Vincent felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The compound, which Xanth dubbed Harmonia, seemed to have remarkable properties. Initial tests showed its potential to cure a wide range of genetic disorders in both humans and Aridians. Moreover, it appeared to enhance cognitive functions and physical adaptability without harmful side effects. "This could be the key to your successful integration of multiple Aridian subspecies traits," Xanth mused, his fingers flying over the holographic controls as he input more data. The news of Harmonia's discovery spread rapidly through both human and Aridian communities. Vincent soon found himself at the center of a storm of attention, with medical researchers from both species clamoring for access to him and Xanth's data. General Kraz, recognizing the potential for exploitation, quickly implemented strict security measures around Vincent and the IDC team. "Your safety is paramount," Kraz told them during a briefing. "Not just for your own sakes, but for the future of human-Aridian relations." A special Aridian protection unit, led by the stern-faced Major Zex, was assigned to safeguard the group. Vincent couldn't help but feel a mix of gratitude and unease as he noticed the ever-present shadows of their new protectors. As preparations for the Human-Aridian Summit intensified, Vincent found himself working closely with Commander Reeves. The human officer's face was etched with lines of worry as she relayed the latest developments from Earth. "We're facing significant resistance from hardline factions within our government," Reeves explained, her voice tight with frustration. "Admiral Harding and his supporters view the Aridians as a threat. They're pushing for immediate military action." Vincent felt a chill run down his spine at the thought of war breaking out between the two species. "What can we do to help?" he asked, aware of the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Reeves managed a small smile. "Just keep doing what you're doing, Vincent. Your existence, your very biology, is proof that cooperation between our species is possible. We need to make sure that message gets across loud and clear at the summit." As the date of the summit approached, Vincent and the IDC team were transported to the neutral space station, Concordia. As their shuttle docked, Vincent's breath caught in his throat at the sight of the massive structure. The station, a marvel of joint human-Aridian engineering, gleamed against the backdrop of stars, a shining symbol of what could be achieved through cooperation. However, as soon as Vincent stepped onto the station, he knew something was wrong. A wave of dizziness washed over him, and he felt an odd tingling sensation throughout his body. Alarmed, he turned to Xanth, who was already scanning him with a handheld device. "Fascinating," Xanth murmured, his eyes wide. "Your hybrid physiology is reacting to the station's environment. You're emitting a powerful pheromone cloud that's affecting both humans and Aridians in close proximity." Vincent watched in amazement as the humans and Aridians around him seemed to relax, their postures becoming less rigid, their expressions more open. He could almost feel the tension in the air dissipating. "It appears to be inducing a state of increased empathy and open-mindedness," Xanth continued, his voice filled with excitement. "This could create a more conducive atmosphere for negotiations." However, the unexpected development also raised concerns. Some delegates argued that decisions made under the influence of these pheromones might not be valid. To address these worries, special filtration systems were hastily installed in the main conference rooms. As the summit began, Vincent and the IDC team found themselves at the heart of the proceedings. Their unique perspectives and experiences proved invaluable in facilitating communication between human and Aridian delegates. Vincent watched with pride as Zara deftly explained a complex Aridian concept to a group of human scientists, her bioluminescence pulsing gently to emphasize key points. However, the fragile atmosphere of cooperation was soon tested. Admiral Harding, his face set in hard lines, demanded unrestricted access to Aridian technology in exchange for peace. The Aridian representatives, led by the imposing High Counselor Vex, bristled at the suggestion. "We have concerns about human expansionism," Vex stated, his voice resonating through the chamber. "How can we trust that our advanced bioengineering knowledge won't be misused?" Vincent felt the tension in the room ratchet up several notches. Drawing on his experiences with both species, he stepped forward, his heart pounding. "If I may," he began, his voice steady despite his nerves, "I'd like to propose a compromise." All eyes turned to him as Vincent outlined his idea for a gradual exchange of knowledge and technology, overseen by a joint committee of human and Aridian scientists, with safeguards to prevent misuse. As he spoke, he could see the idea gaining traction among the moderate factions on both sides. The summit seemed to be making progress, but Vincent couldn't shake the feeling that they were balanced on a knife's edge. One wrong move could send them tumbling into conflict. As he looked out at the sea of faces, human and Aridian, filled with hope and fear in equal measure, he knew that the real challenges were only beginning. As the weight of responsibility settled on Vincent's shoulders, his body suddenly betrayed him. A wave of dizziness washed over him, and he stumbled, nearly collapsing to the floor. "Vincent!" Zara cried out, her bioluminescent patterns flashing in alarm as she rushed to support him. Xanth was at his side in an instant, scanner in hand. The Aridian scientist's eyes widened as he examined the readings. "This is not good," he muttered, his voice tight with concern. "Vincent's hybrid physiology is destabilizing rapidly." Commander Reeves pushed through the crowd of concerned delegates. "What's happening to him?" Xanth's fingers flew over the scanner, his brow furrowed in concentration. "It appears the virus we encountered on Aridus has mutated. It's attacking Vincent's unique genetic structure at an accelerated rate." As Vincent's condition deteriorated, chaos erupted in the conference chamber. Human delegates accused the Aridians of orchestrating a biological attack, while Aridian representatives vehemently denied the allegations. The fragile peace they had worked so hard to build threatened to crumble. Through the haze of pain and confusion, Vincent heard Admiral Harding's voice, sharp with anger. "This is exactly why we can't trust them. They've weaponized their own virus against us." High Counselor Vex's response was equally heated. "How dare you accuse us of such treachery? We have worked tirelessly for peace." Vincent struggled to speak, his voice barely above a whisper. "Stop fighting. We need to work together." His words were lost in the growing din of accusations and counter-accusations. As Vincent's consciousness began to fade, he felt himself being lifted onto a stretcher. Through blurry vision, he saw Zara, Lyra, Naya, and Kira surrounding him, their faces etched with worry. The next few hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. Vincent drifted in and out of consciousness, aware of the constant beeping of medical equipment and the urgent voices of Xanth and his team. He could sense the presence of his 4 Aridian companions, never leaving his side. In a moment of clarity, Vincent's eyes snapped open. He found himself in the station's medical bay, surrounded by a complex array of human and Aridian technology. Xanth stood nearby, deep in conversation with a human doctor. "Xanth!" Vincent called out, his voice hoarse. The Aridian scientist was at his side in an instant. "Vincent, how are you feeling?" "Like I've been hit by a transport shuttle." Vincent managed a weak smile. "But I think I know how to beat this thing." Xanth leaned in closer, his antennae twitching with interest. "What do you mean?" Vincent struggled to sit up, supported by Zara and Naya. "The key is in our combined genetic material. Me, Zara, Lyra, Naya, and Kira. We need to perform a rapid genetic fusion." Xanth's eyes widened. "That's incredibly risky, Vincent. The strain on your body could be fatal." "It's our only chance," Vincent insisted. "Not just for me, but for peace between our species." After a moment of hesitation, Xanth nodded. "I'll prepare the equipment." The procedure was unlike anything Vincent had ever experienced. As the genetic material from his Aridian companions was introduced into his system, his body convulsed violently. He felt as if he was being torn apart and remade on a cellular level. Zara, Lyra, Naya, and Kira, connected to Vincent through a web of medical devices, gasped and shuddered as their bodies synchronized with his. Vincent's skin shifted and changed, taking on characteristics of each Aridian subspecies in turn. As the integration reached its peak, Vincent felt a surge of energy course through him. His body began producing a new, supercharged form of harmonia. The compound flooded his system, neutralizing the mutated virus with astonishing speed. Xanth, monitoring the process, let out a cry of excitement. "It's working! The virus is being eliminated!" As Vincent's body stabilized, he became aware of new sensations. He could feel the subtle shifts in the station's atmospheric pressure, sense the electrical currents running through the walls, and perceive the chemical composition of the air around him. Opening his eyes, Vincent saw his reflection in a nearby screen. His appearance had changed dramatically. His skin now shimmered with a faint bioluminescence, while patches of desert-tough hide and aquatic-adapted tissue were visible across his body. As he watched, fascinated, his skin rippled and changed, adapting to match each of his Aridian companions in turn. "Extraordinary," Xanth breathed, running his scanner over Vincent's body. "You've not only survived the procedure, but you've also integrated traits from all 4 Aridian subspecies. You can shift between adaptations at will." As news of Vincent's recovery and transformation spread through Concordia, the mood of the summit shifted dramatically. Human and Aridian delegates alike were awed by this living proof of successful interspecies integration. Admiral Harding, who had witnessed the entire procedure, approached Vincent with a changed demeanor. I may have been hasty in my judgments," he admitted, his voice gruff but sincere. "What you've accomplished here, it changes everything." High Counselor Vex, equally impressed, nodded in agreement. "Indeed, this demonstration of human adaptability and Aridian genetic diversity working in harmony opens up possibilities we had not dared to imagine." As Vincent stood before the assembled delegates, his body subtly shifting to display traits of each Aridian subspecies, he felt a profound sense of hope. The path to peace, which had seemed so tenuous before, now stretched out before them, clear and attainable. "We stand at a crossroads," Vincent addressed the chamber, his voice strong and clear. "We have seen the power of cooperation, the potential when our species work together. Let us build on this moment to create a future where humans and Aridians not only coexist but thrive together." As the delegates erupted into applause, Vincent turned to his 4 Aridian companions. Their faces shone with pride and love, a reflection of the deep bond they now shared. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as a family that bridged the gap between 2 worlds. The summit reconvened with renewed energy and purpose. As negotiations continued, Vincent and his companions found themselves at the center of discussions about the future of human-Aridian relations. Their unique bond and Vincent's adaptable physiology provided a template for possibilities that had never before been considered. As the talks progressed, Vincent couldn't help but marvel at how far they had come. From a desperate mission on a hostile alien world to standing on the brink of a new era of interstellar cooperation. The future, once so uncertain, now held endless possibilities.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.